What's up, everyone? Thank you for joining Your Yes is Needed podcast, continuing the Why Not series. And today I have my coach, the only person in the world to get me into heels, makeup, bikini, have my hair turned blonde. Everything is my coach, my bodybuilding coach, Coach Cara. So I want to get into real quick how I got at her team, and it was because of one of my friends, Stephanie, who was her coach, and she had just recently competed. And she actually, what really got my attention was that she said that Coach Cara was like next level. I said, oh, next level, dope. I may be interested, but I had trust issues. I had trust issues with someone and like the whole industry and just the whole wellness overall. So our first Zoom meeting, I flat out said, like, I don't trust you. I don't trust people. So like, hope this works out. I don't know anyone else that would have had me on their team if I would have said it. I think my intention was I wanted to be extremely upfront with how I felt. And so that's like, if I were to ask like a lot of questions, it wasn't out of like me questioning you or question your ability, is because I had trust issues. That was my intention. So glad it worked out. Glad the good Lord touched your heart, because it was rough. I ain't gonna lie, I made it rough. So, but one of the things that that really got my attention and why like I actually stay in bodybuilding, and why I always say I will stay on Team Rise for a very long time, is because one of the things that you had said was when you were in your life of transitioning from this terrible relationship to finding yourself, the habits that you picked up was the habits that I had picked up. And I never met anyone that did the exact same thing that I did, except for you. Until this day, I haven't met no one else. And one of the things that you like that I did was when you lose your shit, you're like, you're done. You're like saying like, man, there has to be something else. And so you get to this level of desperation. So what I did was I was obsessed with audiobooks. I read books after books. I woke up every single morning and I had trouble reading. Like I had serious ADHD. It took me like almost an hour to read a chapter, but my level of desperation did not care. Like, I don't care if it took me an hour to read the chapter. I needed to empty out whatever the fuck was holding me into this position. And I needed to like empty it out with some good shit so I could take this bad shit out of me. And so I just read a YouTube. I listened to podcasts. I wasn't in a position where, oh, if I have time, I'll listen to it. Like, nah, bitch. It was when I was making breakfast. It was in my car. It was when I was walking. It was when I was running. It was a mandatory medication that I needed to have in order to like get this bad shit out of me so I could stop doing stupid shit. So when you said that, I was like, oh. And so I want you to go ahead and take over. And one of the questions before, when I asked you to be on this podcast, and you're like, well, what's the topic? And I kind of like gave you a topic, but like the next morning I got like more in depth, and I said, what was the switch for you? Because I know what was mine. Because to me, in order to get to that level of desperation, you have to be done. There's no tolerance. There's no like back and forth. Like, he made me mad. She made me mad. Like, fuck him. And then all of a sudden you go back and you're like, no, I'm done. No, that's it. And then you go back. Like, no, you are done. So what was your switch to where it was no longer tolerable and this was no longer accepted? But please tell me what you do, and they go into that. I felt like we just jumped right into that right away.
What do I do? I coach an amazing group of women to elevate their lives and their bodies, their health, their fitness, and their entire wellness realm to the next level. And it's so rewarding to me to be able to share my journey and what brought me from the darkest place and a pretty deep hell for me, and be able to guide women to this amazing life and possibility and set those intentions and put action behind it and see the rewards that can be reaped from it. Because I was in such a world of chaos, abuse, and it was 10 years with an extreme narcissist, alcoholic. And through all of that, I kept telling myself, I'm strong. I know that the things that he's saying to me, the constant bashing, the constant, putting me down, I would say, I'm stronger than that. It's not going to touch me. I know that, all of this isn't true. And I kept thinking I can rise above it. But it kept continuing, and I kept thinking I can change him and it'll get better. And the alcoholism got deeper and deeper and deeper. The abuse got worse and worse. And I had a knife pulled on me. I had so many episodes that I didn't think I'd make it through. And that switch came when I said, I think if I don't get free from this person in my life, I'm going to die. And the reality of that hit me so hard that I was going to have 3 children in the hands of this monster who is completely incapable of even taking care of himself. And I said, there is absolutely no way I can let that happen. And I then went on a mission that I was like, I don't care what type of hell it's going to take to get through it, because I knew it wasn't going to be an easy break, because I had tried many, many times.
Me and you have had that conversation too, where like we've both been in situations where like, yeah, that's hell, but leaving is when hell really begins. Mm-hmm. And so in back of our minds, like we know that, yeah, this is hell, but what happens when I leave is it's going to get worse. And so that's why most people don't leave. And so we have this compromising conversation with ourselves. Like, I can at least tolerate this, because if I go anywhere, it's going to get worse. Yep. But without realizing it's already worse. And so staying in it, there's no expiration date. There's no ending. There's no tunnel. There's no light staying in it. But leaving it, yeah, there's this hell, but there's a light. And that's the difference. And so like I definitely in my light, but at that time you're like, man, it's just gonna get worse. And I'm pretty sure that's exactly 100%. What you said.
100%. There were so many times that I was like, enough, I have to go. But I always was putting somebody else first, because the repercussions that would happen, it would be like things would get smashed. The kids would end up having no TV. I can't tell you the countless numbers of TVs smashed in this house. And, when he knew that was no longer going to upset me, that he would reach out to friends and family. He did things to my parents. I lost all these friends because he would send messages saying who knows what to get them to, leave my life and have nothing to do with me. And so I started to think, I need to protect everyone around me. So it's better if I just take the brunt of it, and I'll just, I'm used to it. I'll bear that burden so that these other people wouldn't be affected. And going back to that switch, I finally was like, why am I doing this? I don't deserve this. I can't live like this anymore. Like I said, I have to be here for my children. Once that switch came on, and I was determined, like, I don't care what it's going to take to get through it, because I saw that on the other side, it was going to be so much better. And it was a difficult process, but through it, as you mentioned, I also never met anyone else that said the same thing. It was a very eye-opening experience because I realized the whole time I kept saying, these words aren't really penetrating. I know they're not true. You know, I have this kind of like bubble, I thought, protecting me from all the negativity. But once it was just me and I was free in my space, I realized that I needed a constant influx of positive messages and things that were going to basically rewrite that broken record that was going in my head, because I had heard
it's
the
like
negativity
like,
over and over.
When we surround ourselves with people or put ourselves in those relationships or situations, we actually create a library of all this shit of like what's wrong with us without realizing that we just create a whole library in our head. And so when we are in our lowest, we pull out a book of what has been told of us, and we actually are reading it in our minds. And that's why I felt like I needed to like change my library, because it was insane. Like I felt like, man, I kept hearing, you fat fuck. I was like, yeah, I know I'm fat. Like they ain't gonna do nothing. Like, so it's like, but I just kept hearing it, and here it is like, it's almost like a broken record of libraries that was told about me.
100%. I picture like a card catalog. It's just full of all the subjects of all the stuff that was said and done, and that again you don't think, but it's like you're constantly being barraged by this messaging, and that's what's playing over and over and over. And just like you said, I had to be militant about the positive messages that were coming back into my brain and recording over that track and that broken record that was playing. And I'm like, I can't trust myself for 1 second to not have something positive coming in, because it would immediately revert back to all of those awful things. Like, who's going to want you? You're a mom of 3, 40 years old. What are you going to do? Like, it just kept going. And so from the moment I woke up, I would listen to anything I could get my hands on, podcasts, audiobooks. I would just instantly go right to YouTube, search something, like whatever it was, play quick.
Yeah. I don't, do you know what kind of, like, to me, my podcast was like people that share their overcoming story, like Leah Remini and Troublemaker. That was one of my favorites. Tiffany Haddish. I listened to David Goggins. I listened to Gucci Mane. I listened to TD Jakes. I mean, everyone that had a story and what they overcame, I was obsessed with it. And the more they share their overcoming stories, the more I became with overcoming. So what was your podcast around the topics?
Oh, 100%. So many that you mentioned. In the range was pretty wide. There was You Are a Badass, so Jen Sincero. I loved the humor that was in it, because I was like, I need to laugh right now too. Like I need to, bring the joy back. I read Eckhart Tolle and The Power of Now, and there was such a wide range of things that I just wanted to absorb it all. And also part of that was remembering me and what I used to like to do, and realizing I now have the freedom to replace all of that chaos and all of the time I spent catering to somebody else, making somebody else happy. I get to now turn that towards me and say, well, what makes me happy? And it was jaw-dropping that I didn't know the answer. And so I said, I used to like to read. And don't you know that this fucker had thrown away all my books because he knew how much they meant to me. So that's where I started dabbling in anything. I was like, I need some new books. I need some new stuff. And I just would go for whatever, appealed to me.
And so one of the things that you had mentioned before was like, you were always into bodybuilding 20 years ago. And then you stopped. And then suddenly just why not came over your life. Please share that part.
Yeah. I really do feel like fitness saved my life on a lot of levels because I had become a fitness coach and personal trainer at like the age of 20, 21. By 22, I was competing and I was doing my fitness competitions in Miami. And then I had my first daughter, got divorced, moved back to Massachusetts. That's where I met my ex and started in that life of chaos and abuse. And in that time period, I completely lost me. I lost all my goals. I knew that anything I tried to achieve, he was going to destroy. And so deep inside, I was like, I know I want to be a pro and I deserve that. And that's something that would be amazing to achieve. So when I made that switch, I made that determination to leave this relationship. I was about to turn 40 and I was like, why not? Why not go for that pro card I've always wanted? Why not radically change my life at the age of 40 and do everything that I've wanted to do? And besides the podcasts and the audiobooks and all the positive messaging, I also spent a lot of time training in the gym. I would go to the gym and I would just let it all out. I needed that physical exertion, and that also helped me tremendously.
And then so at 40, which most people would be like, oh, hell no. So what was the, yeah, I'm gonna go for it. What was that? What was that sign that I'm gonna go for it?
I can't really explain how I just realized I guess I felt the urgency in it. Like I was thinking about, I need to be here for my kids, and I've put myself on the back burner for far too long. And I really started to look at myself and go, if I coach other women to this, why not me? Why am I holding myself to a lower standard? And so I started putting bold action into it. And that's when I noticed a huge shift. It was declaring it, putting that intention out there, and then making that bold action to achieve it. And I started speaking in in present, like as I am a pro, working, and showing up as that. Like I said, putting all the work behind it and owning it. And I started to feel very powerful in that, taking that bold action, showing up for myself. And it changed me. I felt different inside. I was showing up differently for myself. And I then went on to, after 14 years in retirement, I came back that first competition and I won my pro card. And then 2 weeks later, I had my second competition. No, sorry, 1 week later, my second competition, I won my second pro card. The very next day, I had my pro debut and I won second place in both of my pro classes, only behind the current 3-time world champion. So not too shabby. And then 2 weeks later, I went to compete at the world championships, the WNBF world championships in LA. And I placed 4th as a pro. And it felt absolutely amazing. And I was able to look at that and just go, wow, that is such amazing proof of having that why not mentality, recognizing that the only one that's holding you back is yourself, being open to the possibilities, and then just putting the work, setting the intention, backing it up and going for it. It was amazing.
Yes. And so with your intentions, and you can both agree that having a 5 whys and having pure intentions takes you a lot further than just doing things out of ego. Ego does not last. And so so with being in that relationship, would you say that when you meet people or when you see things, that you can see the red flags from a mile away?
Yes.
Oh, I know I can. Like,
yes, I will say that is a huge benefit to having gone through that experience, because I was totally blind to it.
well,
And then I started to realize, like, wait, there's red flags I should have noticed so long ago.
what would you say, like, I know what mine was. What would you say, like, we say, oh, we're so blind, I didn't know. Like, I would have flat out say, like, we have this ego to where we become Messiah, and we're like, I can fix you because there's, but not because I'm broken, but you're broken. And if I can fix you, then it will make my brokenness feel better. But no one wants to say that. No one, there's empath has like the worst egos there is, but no one wants to say that.
I'll say it.
Okay.
I thought I had all the power to fix, I knew he was very, very broken, and I thought I had the power to change it. Yeah. I really did.
And I thought, man, if I'm just patient, then the patience is going to show. And all of a sudden, and I'm like, now I see myself, I'm like, what the fuck was I thinking? And so, and and I think unfortunately, when people are in these situations, I don't know why we need to fall on our face in order to see a light. I don't know why I joke around now. I'm like, God, can you just send me an email? I promise to read it. I promise to read it. Like, I don't want to be hard-headed no more. But I feel that sometimes we have to get to a point of almost fall on our face to say, wow, did it take that? Like, why are we so ignorant to listening? Why are we so like ignorant to say, to me, I can tell you, at least in my mind, I'm like, you don't know what you're talking about. I will admit, I had said that too many times to where now I love listening. I'm like, I don't want to pay that price. And so I have admit that I'm like, it happened to you. This worked out for you. It's not going to work out for me. 100%. And so would you say that you repeated those words?
Yeah. And I mean, even the warnings from other people and like, hey, I want you to know this happened to me too. And I'd be like, that's you,
right?
And I was like, are you, like, looking back, like, really, Cara, are you for real? Like, why? And
yeah. And there's this like, and it's funny because you want to go back and ask yourself, what is something inside me that made me fall for it? And so you go back and you go, man, and then you realize when there's one person that took advantage of you, oh, there's a second one, and there's a third one, and there's a fourth one, because without realizing, you're like, man, how did I allow all these people in my life to take advantage of me? And then you realize it's not them, it's me. And 100%. It's me. And so to me, I was like, before I even get to the business of helping people, I need to make sure that I have all these doors closed. So when I do help people, it's not about me. And that's why in my post, you will hear me say a lot, this is not about me. And I'm so glad I'm finally there, but like, man, what an ass whooping.
Right. And you bring up such an important point, because these people are attracted to that person that we were, because we needed to heal things in ourselves that weren't healed. And once you heal those things in yourself, those people won't come around. They'll be like, oh, I can't mess with her.
No.
I can't get what I want out of this. And it's almost like they'll be repelled away.
Yeah. And I thank you for saying that. Like, I realized, like, if I'm attracting them, what else am I attracting? And so I was like, man, like, it's me. I kept saying it's me. So how do I close this door? What door do I need to close so that these wolves can stop taking advantage of me that I'm allowing. And so I used to blame because I'm a Virgo. I'm like, it's because I'm a Virgo. I needed a reason, but so, and then so now once you realize that you made the switch, what is it that you do different that you once accepted that you no longer accept? Oh,
great
that's a good
question.
one. Yeah.
One of the things that was really important for me was setting boundaries. And I honestly would say I had no clue what that meant. I had zero clue. Boundaries to me then sounded like something that like some bitch that like, you know, has no friends and like has no one around her might have.
Right.
It's actually,
I agree with you.
180-degree difference from what I think now, which boundaries are healthy. You absolutely need them. And if someone doesn't respect those boundaries, they don't have any place in your life. And that has been a really important piece to realize. Definitely the most important.
And so I had posted something the other day that you said, that was really good. And it took me a long time to even understand that, because if I had read that 5 years ago, I would have no idea what that meant. And so what I had posted the other day was that I should say the boundaries thing is good, because I was very guilty of setting up boundaries. That was my ass whooping, was the guilt of obligation. And so boundaries is very healthy. And if you're always feeling guilty, you have to ask yourself why. And so I had posted something the other day about levels. And I realized that sometimes that some levels requires, some people can only relate to me at my hurt. And so when I was fat and drunk, I felt like a lot of people was able to relate to that. I had so many friends. I had so many people that understood my leg pain, my back pain, my this pain, my procrastination, my lack of time management. I had so many people understand those levels. The level that I'm at now, it's like crickets. It's like crickets up here. And so I always say that it's hard to stay at a high level because it's lonely. And so we don't know what to do with our loneliness. So we step and paddle back. And so you're like, man, this is why people don't stay up here, is because it's lonely up here. And you were like, oh, I can so relate. Can you share why you're able to relate?
Yes, that post really resonated with me, because I had an experience like that, where when I was at the bottom level, rebuilding my foundation, everything was crumbled. I literally had to rebuild brick by brick. And I had one friend that came back around. Everyone was gone because of this relationship. And that one friend was really great at the time. She was like, you can do this, and she was very uplifting and positive to me. But I didn't realize until after, it was only because I really was at the bottom. And once I started rebuilding and got to a good place and was thriving and was happy, she started to fall away, and she started to say that we just couldn't be friends anymore. And it was just mind-blowing to me, like, wait, what just happened? Like, you're like my only friend. And I realized it was because I had been attracting all of these great things into my life. I was really a different person. And I then became aware of the fact that things that aren't meant for you will fade away, or you will lose them in your life, or friends will drop away, or whatever it is, because they're no longer on that same vibration as you. They're no longer that same energetic match as you. So now I realize some people just aren't meant to be there forever. And
that shit sucks. That shit sucks, because you start questioning yourself, like, man, maybe I should relax some more, or maybe they're right. And you start questioning yourself a lot, because you're like, damn, I like literally have no more fucking friends. Like, And so
100%.
it's so hard. It's so hard to see like what is them and what is you. And so that's why I believe a lot of alone time is needed to study your own intentions, to say, okay, but I still with my whole heart believe this. And you have to get to a level of humbleness and be like, I mean, if it's me, show me it's me. If it's not, then, you know, show me another sign that I can keep going. And it's so hard because it's so quiet, and you start learning more about yourself. You start learning who's for you. You start learning about really what's pure intentions. And I always say, like, man, it's unfair. Like, I used to say that a lot. It's so unfair that I have to go through this. It's so unfair that I have to experience this. But I realize it's because I'm the one that stepped myself into it. And so it's not unfair when I thought that I was better than everyone else. It wasn't unfair when I had to admit that I was wrong and they were right. Like the people that were saying like, hey, you're going to get yourself in a lot of more trouble. And I was like, no, you got yourself in trouble. I can figure it out. And so it was my ego dying that made me say it was unfair. And so with just like the last 5 minutes of it, before we close out, one of the reasons why I keep you as a coach is because of this level of depthness. And if anyone has gone through my Instagram, I get to the levels, I take my body physically because of where I take myself mentally. To me, if you can feed your mental part, you can tell your body what to do. I think it's the easiest part. A lot of people focus on like a lot of other things physically, and then they go back to their old ways. 98% of people go back to their old ways, which is crazy to me when we are surrounded by gyms and resources and all this other stuff. But why do so many people go back? It's because they don't focus on the mindset the most.
They don't fix their mind. Yeah.
So I know we both know a lot of people that have great potential, but then they go back to their old ways, and no one asks why. You know why. I know why. And so because you have that mentality versus like, well, you know, this, like, it's so much bigger than that. It's a mental thing, and then you can tell your body what to do. That is the greatest medicine. So with just a few minutes left, and this is why I keep you as a coach, by the way. So, so with just a few minutes left, and I know it's like you're a bodybuilding coach, but you are at a level where you feed your mind more to tell your body what to do. What would you say to anyone that is in a situation that they seem that it is impossible to get out of, and they have kids and they are scared and they think there is no way out, and they just think like this is how the life is going to be for the rest of their lives? What would you like to say to them?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I would really like them to know that the way I look at my experience, and I don't look at it as it happened to me. I look at it that it happened for me. And I don't take it lightly, because I believe I was actually meant to go through this in order to now have this message to share. And for a long time, it didn't resonate with me. I felt ashamed. I felt nobody would understand. And when I started slowly speaking my truth and telling my story, I got so many messages from women saying, thank you so much for saying this. I'm in a situation like that now. Or, I've been through that, and I can't believe you're sharing that, because nobody speaks up. And that's when it really made me aware that I have to share my truth. I have to share my story, because had I known somebody at that time that I heard the story from, it probably would have given me a lot of hope. But unfortunately, these things don't get talked about, or it's behind closed doors. And there's a lot of shame behind it, because I had to look at it and go, why did this happen to me? Like I said, I now see it as it happened for me because I'm so much stronger now. I have learned so much about myself, about life, about relationships, like on so many levels. And I'm now a completely different person. So I'm very thankful for that. So I'd want these women to know that there is hope. And as we spoke about earlier, it's really, really difficult. And they say it's the most dangerous part, leaving a relationship like that. And so, no, I would say try to set a plan, get things in place before you try to make those moves. And, obviously be safe. And especially if there's kids involved, it makes it a little bit more difficult, or a lot more difficult. But there's so much beyond that. It's so worth it for yourself to find that peace and to live for you and what lights you up and make yourself whole and make yourself your life worth living. It's not worth living in chaos and abuse and drama. It's just not. Life is too short. Life is too amazing. Don't spend it like that.
That is a great message for anyone listening that's in the situation. Thank you so much. There will be a part 2, guys. There will be a part 2. Yes. There's so much more to talk about because so much. If you can fill your mind up with this good shit, man, you can tell your body what to do. So thank you again for joining the podcast, and
thank you for having me.
Part 2 will be around the corner.
I look forward to it. Thank you so much.